New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
No sound.
No microphone.
There we go.
Good morning, dear ones. Rev BRZ over here with you.
Rev Z right here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit. Happens every Friday morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad you're with us. Please do remember, you're more than welcome to comment, chat in the chat box. Let us know your thoughts on what we're talking about here today and where we go and where this conversation goes, because we'd love for you to be a part of it. So morning, Z. How you doing today, brother?
Oh, not bad. Doing okay. Just waking up to another weekend where our government is trying to vote on something that seems to be on the hamster wheel going round and round, and we're hoping that this day that they fix that. And they got the House Build Back Better bill and another infrastructure bill that they're working on. So I'm hoping that they get that done so we can start moving some economy, because now, we might have a real Grinch that stole Christmas.
Yeah, I'm getting a little tired of everybody just bitching about the government and nobody actually, and that includes the government, right? Yeah. They generally just bitch about each other and nobody's actually. And I agree. I'd like to see something get done.
Would be nice.
Today. It would be nice, other than mayhem and chaos. But that seems to be well. All right. The order of the day, if you will, is not chaos, but it seems like the order of the day is cleaning up after some of the chaos. And we've got a lot of things going on right now. I've seen a lot of stories about insurrectionists and people from January 6th and their trials. There's trials going on in various episodes that happened last summer that are now coming to the fore. And I think the biggest one is the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Yeah. And that's what we'd like to dig in with a little bit today, folks, because this is an intersection of, wow, how many different perspectives and views are there here, right, Z?
I mean, again, it's a case in my mind where we have systemic leverage, if you will, within our system that does not always balance itself out when you look at the person being tried or investigated or whatever in the legal system. I mean, here's a young man, 17 years old, came across state lines carrying an AK-47, which he is not supposed to have. He's 17. He comes across the line at a Black Lives Matter and shoots 3 people, killing 2. Now, you look at that, and at the end of all the mayhem, he walks by at least 3 or 4 armored police vehicles with his hands up, dressed in civilian clothes with an AK around his neck. No one stops, right?
Right.
Now, I would just throw a kite in the wind and say if that had been a person of color, He may have did all the shooting, but when he walked by 4 armored vehicles with that gun around his neck, somebody would at least stop and ask.
Well, he wouldn't have gotten very far past the second one.
No.
No.
And that's just the beginning of the story. When you start looking at all the jury, not the jury issue now, and the judge's statements. I mean, you were telling me about something the judge said. That is just scary. And so I'm just wondering, how do we begin individually and collectively to look at our justice system and begin to dismantle all of the injustice within it?
Yes. That's a great point. And interestingly enough, I didn't read the article, but I saw a headline that it was either in Minnesota or Michigan in Tuesday's elections turned back an effort to, quote, defund the police and replace the police department with a public safety department. Right. So I want to be very respectful, folks, that this is not a black and white issue. No. Sorry, the pun. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. But we've got a lot of intersections where, yes, this man was at the time underage. He's now over 18. He's now a legal adult. Is the court going to look at that as if he is found guilty? Will we look at that from a perspective that he was acting as an adult?
Yes.
Or will we try to then look at him as a child, as a youth, as not fully capable of being responsible for, right? Under 17, like under 18, it's sort of, you're not really responsible for yourself. But I also saw an article with a gentleman who was in Afghanistan, who is a military veteran, who had also traveled to Kenosha that night. Now, remember, folks, there's a lot of people with guns that are from out of state or out of the area who have come there under the pretext to protect private businesses from looting and arson. And there was a lot of civil unrest happening at that time in Kenosha. And he is on record now stating that he felt Kyle was under-equipped and under-experienced and didn't truly belong there. And so some of the more, quote, mature protectors we're trying to keep an eye out for him and take him under his wing. That they felt the guy said he felt his manner and his behaviors made him a target it would make him a target if he were out on the streets. Just to roll back the conversation a minute, when I look at the number of people of color, and specifically blacks, that commit crimes underage and get charged as adults, or get sentenced as adults, uncharged as adults, which sets forth the sentencing, right. That number is pretty high. I was looking for the numbers. I haven't found it yet, but I will look for the numbers. So, it's just curious, I'll say, of how, like you said, first of all, this is not a black case, all right? The 3 people that Kyle shot, there were 2 white individuals that lost their lives and 1 white individual who was injured. Right. So, this is not about a black on white killing or anything like that, right? So right. We can eliminate that from the thing. Now, you throw in that they were in support of a Black Lives Matter. Okay, now we can start, getting some fuzzy lines, if you will. But at the pure heart of the case, this is a young man who was against anyone, black, white, or whatever, standing up for the rights of blacks and people of color to be treated fairly, to be, recognized, so forth and so on. And the system, even though he killed people of his own
race, he is now being given all sorts of preferential treatment, I feel, or it appears, based on the support that they were giving to Black Lives Matter, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I absolutely agree with you. I think this case, more than anything, it points to the shortcomings of society. What's a 17-year-old doing with a gun? But it points to the systemic racism that the event originally was called to dismantle.
Right.
And this whole thing is born out of an attempt to dismantle systemic racism. But I agree with you, Z. I think we're seeing it again here in the trial, and in what's going on. And one of them is I don't think this juror was seated. I think the way it happened is this was in the preliminary interviews.
Right.
But a middle-aged white guy makes a joke, or quote makes a joke to, we don't know the race of the security of the officer, but makes a joke to a sheriff's officer about the original killing by a police officer of a black man that sparked the protests and these events to begin with.
Yeah, and I don't think he died. I think it was the Blake case, and I think he's just paralyzed from the waist down. And just to throw a little contrast, right? Just a little contrast of that whole thing, right? So shift gears. I know 1,000+ miles down to Brunswick, Georgia.
Okay.
Where you have the trial beginning for Ahmaud Arbery in a city, according to the U.S. Census, the Brunswick City, Georgia, right? And I think this happened in Brunswick. I know the thing is happening in Brunswick. Brunswick, it says, has if these numbers are correct, Brunswick has over 50-something% blacks in the community. And I want to go and confirm these numbers, but this was first glance. They say 55% black, and they have one black on the jury.
Yeah. Okay. In no way represents the population of the people that the court is representing, right?
No.
How much you want to bet they're going to find a way to get rid of that one black person?
Well, it's the thing will be, even if they don't get rid of them, I mean, depending on the makeup of that jury and their persuasion, right? He would have to be the orator of all orators, I would suggest, if the group was going one way and he thought it should go another way, for him to persuade 11 people. Now he may be able to do a hung jury, maybe, I don't know. So that would be a whole nother ball game, And so I'm just like, okay, what are we gonna do when we get to? I don't know where I got that sound from.
When your research starts talking back to you, folks, this is
it's like, okay, we got a problem for sure now. But that's a problem, that's a problem when we start looking at the makeup of juries and how people and I believe
the judge's comments are also very incredibly problematic. So this is a unique twist also, folks. The judge in the case has ruled that the defense, Kyle's defense, may refer to the participants of the evening as looters or arsonists, because in his mind it has been proven that everybody at that protest was responsible for the looting and the arson that happened. Every single person in attendance. Not sure, I guess unless you have a gun around your neck and you claim you're protecting people. And at the same time, and here's the kicker, ruled that the prosecution cannot refer to the victims as victims. Cannot refer to two men who lost their lives and another one that's been injured, that was seriously injured, as victims in this experience. Now, we're all about personal responsibility here, right, Z? So we're not about making anybody, quote, victims of their experience. We have to admit all three of those men were at that protest, at this, whatever we want to call it, whatever anybody wants to label it, and they take responsibility. And I trust they take responsibility for their own actions.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I don't see here in this trial. Is everybody's trying to make it so that this young 17, now 18-year-old does not have to take responsibility for his own actions.
Right.
They're trying to give this kid a free pass or something.
Because I'd like to see how someone with a paper bag, it was just Rosenbaum, who I saw some video where he threw a paper bag. Now I don't know what was in the bag, but and at that point, Cal had his back to the guy running. I don't know how they're going to sway that to be self-defense. I mean,
I do have to add, the veteran I spoke of earlier, also in his public statements does mention that Rosenbaum was aggressive, and had made statements to the effect that if he caught any of those people, any of these protectors alone in the streets, he would kill them.
Okay, but that's a threat.
So that's a threat. Rosenbaum's it's not an assault. He's a hothead. It's not an attack. It's an assault. It's a threat. Did he have the means and the opportunity to right? That's a whole nother case that could have been litigated. We can't litigate that. Mm-hmm. But yes.
Well, and I guess on top of all of it, I mean, for me, the starting factor, right, is we have an underage individual with an assault weapon that he's carried across state lines from Illinois to Wisconsin. That's the first crime right there. I mean, God forbid we don't get some kind of closure for these people who've lost their lives and their families in terms of justice. But the first thing is, this kid should be charged with carrying this gun across state lines underage, just to get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so after that, I mean, if we start looking, if you don't want to get him, I don't know I forget what the actual murder charge. I don't know if it's self-defense or manslaughter or second degree. I'm not sure what they're rolling out in terms of a charge yet.
Right.
But I mean, those are just added on. I mean, how often have you seen, if you follow some of this type of work, when a person of color gets arrested, they throw a line of charges. Some of them we know that don't make sense, right? They'll throw first degree murder and felony assault and trespassing and behavior unbecoming. I don't know. They just throw a whole bunch of stuff, knowing that some of that stuff's gonna fall away, but they want to have enough to stick. I'm curious to see what happens with this case in that regard. I mean, there's a lot of charges that could be levied against this kid, and the question is, will it be, and how will they seek to try this guy, whether it's as a kid or an adult? He was surely acting as an adult, as a protector, so he thought.
He I believe in his mind he was showing up as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
The charges are first degree reckless homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, first degree reckless endangering safety, again, use of a dangerous weapon, first degree intentional homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, attempted first degree intentional homicide, first degree reckless endangering safety, possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. failure to comply with an emergency order from state or local government. Hey, now here's an interesting one. Kenosha officials would post an 8 p.m. curfew the night of the shooting. Rittenhouse was still on the streets as midnight approached. The offense is punishable by up to $200 in forfeitures. Well, son of a gun, don't we have pictures of the cops giving him water sometime after 8 p.m.? Don't we have images of the police giving this kid and others with illegal, which we now know are illegally transported weapons across state lines? Okay, we got to get into the police department. They need to be held accountable for this too. Mm-hmm. And again, we talked about this before the show. If this kid really was acting in self-defense, I cannot see how he stood by on the side of the road with his hands up and let the cops drive by. Okay, you need to flee the scene because you're in fear for your life. I get that. If you're in fear for your life, you run up to that cop and you say, help, help, they're trying to kill me and I just shot somebody. You don't stand there and go, well, excuse me, I think I'm going to go home now. I'm going to go get in my car, drive back across state lines and flee the state. Now, this whole thing is...
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it speaks to a bigger issue that has been unfolding forever, but it really came to light when you look at law enforcement and the judicial system beginning on the highest alert with George Floyd. I mean, there are plenty of cases, the Brown case in St. Louis, the case in New York. I mean, you think about the case in New York where I forget his name at the moment, but he was killed for selling loose cigarettes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so we know, not something we're making up, but just by looking at the statistics and the arrests of what people of color are getting arrested for and tried for and sent away for long periods of time, and what happens on the other side of the fence. And so I think at the heart of all of these cases, whether it's this case with Kyle, whether it's the Ahmaud Arbery case, is when they tell me that justice has the little blindfold on, I think that little blindfold is coming off on one eye and they peeking. And there's a little preferential treatment when it comes to how this whole thing works, how they're policed, how they're tried, how they're sentenced. And we know just by looking at right now, they're trying to undo a lot of these laws that happened during the Just Say No drug thing, where they put people away for life for something that was minuscule. And we look at the equivalent amount of crack cocaine and the equivalent amount of cocaine, the times that people got sentenced for was totally different.
Yeah. Yes. And there's really good evidence now and really good documentation that the government and the CIA targeted Black and brown communities specifically in those instances with the whole crack epidemic. And I'm sure in some ways their hands in it still, and in the new fentanyl epidemic. I got a pretty good feeling. That's part of the whole picture, though, right? Isn't it this inherent distrust for those that we're supposed to? So I love this image of Lady Justice peaking, because it does seem like justice is peaking, and those scales are going to tip depending on what color she sees. It's like Groundhog Day. Oh, you're guilty. Oh, you're innocent. Is it light or dark? I see the light. You're innocent. I see the dark. You're guilty. That has to end.
Yeah. And so, and I was going to say it's going to require, a lot of young people. I say young people. Some people may take issue with that, but I say young people because they are more equipped, more in tune, or have the opportunity to be more informed than most of, the generation from millennials and back. And millennials have it, but Gen Z, I mean, these guys, they were born with phones and devices in their hands. So there's no excuse almost for them not to be informed, because they got a walking, talking, broadcasting station and research kit in their hands from day one. So we have to get young people across the color spectrum, across the ethnic spectrum, across all orientations to say, look, if we're going to survive, we got an onslaught now by just nature itself, with all of the things happening in nature. If we're going to have any opportunity of surviving, we have to create an environment, as we say, that works for everyone, that's going to allow people to stand on their own merits with the help. We know there's no islands. And that's the only way we're going to get this thing to work. Or else, it's like, on your calendar, you start marking down to Christmas, i.e. you start marking down when this whole thing falls apart, because that's where we're headed if we can't get some spiritual, humanitarian, and equity flowing through all of these systems that we live in and are supported by.
Yeah. I think it's time for a revival.
Yes.
We need a revival. And you're talking about, right? We need a revival in consciousness where everybody is awakening to this truth that, hey, wait a minute. You're my brother, you're my sister, we're in this together. And yeah, maybe we're not all going the same direction. Yeah, we're not all in the same boat. Yes, some have other privileges that need to be dismantled, and some have, and there are inequities that we need to equalize. There are injustices that need to be righted, and there are false beliefs that need to be eliminated. The false belief in separation, whether because of color, because of orientation, because of choice, because of body style, or the body you're born with, or your gender, what you're assigned at birth versus what you know yourself to be. All of that, I agree with you. The newest generation, the youngest generation right now is all about ripping that stuff to the ground. Yeah. And getting the playing field back to a place of oneness. I don't want to say level, because it'll probably never be truly a flat level playing field. Right. But we can get real close, I believe, and I believe we can do it right now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can. I mean, the thing is, as I see it, is that we have to begin, as you said, this revival. We have to begin to awaken within ourselves and others by not only our talk, but by our actions and behavior of an inclusive environment, and understanding that nature is one thing, right? That there is no fight between the fall, which we are in now, and winter. When winter gets ready to come in, there won't be a fight with fall trying to stay. It just says, okay, time to surrender that idea. I'm out, right?
Denver might be going, come on already here in Denver, but yeah.
Well, yeah. And so we have to begin to learn, like our bodies. There are all kinds of things going on in our body right now, with things going opposite directions in some cases, right? But the overall goal of each action within the body, or within each system within the body, is to maintain the body.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to begin to look at us as a planet, as a universe, really, that we all play an integral part in this. And we have to begin to understand better before we criticize something that seems a little off key or off centered. Let's do a little more investigation. Let's ask a little more questions to understand why that is, because 8 times out of 10, if not 9 times out of 10, it has a specific purpose, and it is helping the whole.
Yes. I agree. So, folks, here we are again. We don't pretend to have all the answers. And what we intend to do with this program each and every week is explore some of these topics and look at all these things. Because as much as you might not like spiders, they are necessary. They serve a purpose. As much as we may not like what's going on in this trial with young man Kyle and the judge and all that, as much as we may not like this, what I know is it's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary to shine a light into those dark places that as a society we have been unwilling to look. And this process is not like any personal transformation. It doesn't happen in one session. It doesn't happen overnight. This started a year. I mean, the cause started decades ago. This specific incident, we're a year out. I want you to remember that. Everybody involved has had a year to practice and perfect their message and exactly what they want you to believe. And what we want you to believe is we're going to invite you to turn to a higher perspective and allow the divine and believe the truth that emerges through practice, through the divine, through these principles. The news, it will be interesting to witness how the media handles this and how our current judicial system handles this case. I got a feeling we might be talking about this again next week, Z.
Yeah, well, as you were saying that, the prophetic words of Bob Rastamale came to mind, where he said, "Are you satisfied with the life you're living? Look within. And if you are not, then it's time to go to work. It's time to begin to build and foster relationships and create institutions that are going to allow us to be satisfied with the life we're living by looking inside and allowing that sometimes incongruent thoughts, ideas, and actions to be unified into a congruent whole that moves forward, looking for life, love, and justice."
Wow. I think we have to give it up to the prophet Marley. And looking at the prophet on the wall there, folks, I realize again, we just like to keep running over, I think. So we're gonna make this official. If you're watching it, whether live or on a replay, we're gonna invite you. Should we take this program to a full hour? Would you like to see us extend this, or would that be too much?
Yeah.
Drop a comment in the comment box. Drop us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. If there's subjects or things you'd like us to speak about directly, please let us know. You may have caught last week I was at Unity Village and we were able to bring a special guest, Reverend Elizabeth Rowley, on, and we put her in a hot seat, as it were. That fireplace was warm. And we're more than willing to bring in more guests, talk about the topics that you would like to hear about, but we'd like to hear from you and know what it is that you'd like to experience. So please reach out, let us know, share all of that. Of course, NT Media is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We survive completely on the gifts, tithe, donations, and offerings of our committed communities and individual viewers and listeners like you. So please do consider adding New Thought Media to your donation list. Just head over to ntmedia.org, click on the donate button, and you'll be there. And hey, folks, I'll share this with everybody. We're redoing the website, Z. New design on the website coming. And hopefully by the end of the year, all new functionality, all new everything on the website. So that should be fun.
So you're telling me we're doing the George Jefferson and moving on up?
Yes, exactly. Moving on up. I don't know if I'm moving to the east side, though. I think I want to keep moving up west from here. A little higher in altitude than anything.
Yes.
Jimmy Buffett said changes in attitude or in latitude. Jimmy Buffett said changes in latitude cause changes in attitude.
I like that.
And I believe that changes in elevation cause changes in elevation. So, all right, folks, enough of our babbling. Z, final thoughts before we get out of here today.
I would say each and every one of us, let's begin to look at the systems that we have and see how we can put more divine spirit in all of it so that we can stand by them and support them and not have these kinds of situations where not only does it seem funny, it is funny the way these systems are working in our lives and creating problems. So let's work together.
Yes. All right. And I got to say, we already got one vote to go longer, Z.
Yeah. Well, that would give us, we could create a different format. We can, we could do like a 60 minutes kind of thing.
Ooh. All right, folks. We're going to go get creative in the back office. We're going to let you get back into your day. Stay with us today, 8:15 p.m., 8:15 on the Mountain Time Zone. We have our morning prayer, 8:30 morning sip with Rev Melissa, 9 o'clock, wake up, say thank you with Rev Steph. I'll be back at 9:30 with the Heart of Peace meditation, new musicians showcase at noon. No, sorry, In the Flow with Rev Skip at 11, new musicians showcase with Jane at noon, and the fireside chat at 5. You don't even have to turn off your screen anymore. You can just hang out with New Thought Media Network almost all day long.
A lot going on.
We love you. Until next time, peace.
Peace.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.